Howdy people, well looks like you got what you asked for. I'll show you a quick bladder service on the Diamond. Mr. OzIbis or Darren here, so anyway. So first wind the ATT off, and I haven't let the air out, and I don't let the air out because it makes it easier to get the legs off because the inner doesn't spin. So I've just wound all my ATT off, 18mm socket. Crack the bottoms. Wind them out till they're all the way out, then put them back in a few threads. I use a dead blow hammer. It's got a nylon face and gives you a nice impact without sort of hitting it too hard or metal on metal sort of thing. So just crack the shafts. Yeah, spring will bounce back a little bit when you hit it, but it should have released. Which it didn't. Take the bases of it out again. Base bolts are out. Very carefully slide the lowers off. Make sure you don't scratch the internals. Hold them straight because when they're correct there should be some oil in them, which there is. Set those aside while the forks are in this position. Close your rebound, it's very important. So close your rebound back off again, just lightly, don't do it too tight. So if you want to work out what size Allen key it is, just use the adjuster to match up the size. Just point it over your brush. See, I've got hardwood holding the steerer tube with some holes drilled in it, holding it in a vise, and I've twisted my vise to the side so I've got a bit better access so it's not over the bench. So now I'm going to put the fork in an upright position. Now there will be some oil in the damper side, so make sure you drain that. Take that off so it's out of the way. Grab the rag. Alright. So you take your little, I think it's 2.5mm Allen key from memory, or 2mm, whatever it is, 2.5. Take your top cap off. Very small little bolt, be careful not to lose that. Lift both adjusters off together. And they should stay together. Oh, get in there, poofter. Now, just stay there. I'll just get the socket. Okay, 22mm socket that's been thinned down on either a Dremel bench grinder. I used a bench grinder. So that needs to be thinned out. So it'll fit inside the top of the bladder or the damper. So at this stage I open it all up so it comes out easier. Just crack the top of the damper. pair of pliers, very carefully grab the low speed compression adjuster, pull up slowly. And there's your bladder and your damper unit. Now it is very fractionally sucked in, so I'll crack the top of it, show you how to bleed it, or burp it. I carefully use a little pick like this. Come down here, I'll show it down on this. Come down low. So, on the top of it there's a little C-clip, which is very oily and slippery. Little C-clip comes off. Push the anodised collar up, it gets out of the way. Very carefully feed that down inside so you don't punch a hole in it. Just let it out. And that should fill the bladder up nicely again with air, so it won't be perfectly round, but it won't be sucked in either. Push your little anodised bit back on, C-clip back on. Okay, that's your damper done. Bled, your bladder bled, burped. So now we get our damper fluid. This is a 10.75 centistate rating damper fluid. It's actually Torco RFF. Just use something similar. The standard, I had 15.9 fluid in there before. I've put a slightly thinner one to try and make it more plush. Put a little bit of damper fluid in there. I don't bother measuring it. It's not a big deal. You just waste a little bit, that's all. Don't fill it up. Just put a bit in there. Probably half to 2/3. Cycle the damper rod. I do various length strokes and speeds just to try and make sure there's no air stuck in anywhere. This is where it's important the rebound's closed. So I think it must be closed just so you don't get air in the open circuit. I'd only done this last week, so there's no actual air in there, but I'm just showing you how to do it. In the down position again, so it's fully extended. Do not compress at 10mm like was recommended by some people. It sucks dog's balls when you ride it that way. Make sure the damper's all nice and clean. The bladder is nice and clean. I just throw a little bit of slicker on the seals. And the O-rings, just to make sure everything slides in nicely. Not too much, don't want to sort of affect the viscosity of the damper fluid, just a very thin smearing and some on the thread and the O-ring at the top so everything goes in nice and clean. So this is where you must make sure that your damper adjustments or your low speed compression must be shut. If you don't shut it, it won't work properly. So that's got to be shut. Drop it back in again carefully, just give it a wobble. Push it down, it'll be very resistant. You see it's going very, very slowly until the fluid comes to the top. See if you're getting close enough, Lush, to show them. Can you see that fluid coming up? See that fluid popping up? Once that's popped up, open up your low speed compression and the thing will just go straight in. Once it gets to that point, hold it, close your low speed again. Tighten that damper back, bladder back up again. Get a little 2.5mm or 2, whatever it is. What is it?
Yeah, mate, pass on
Hey,
that, please.
thank you. Looks like it's 2mm. crack your little bolt on the top of the bladder, little screw, put a bit of grease on the end of the Allen key so the screw will come out and stay there. It is tiny, do not lose it. Put it aside somewhere. So where I use the medicine cup, it's been cut down. It has to fit inside, on the outside of the 22mm, but the inside of the main hex, so you can do your bleeding. I cut it out of one of those with the basement, just a normal medicine cup, and you just got to cut it the right height to get it flat. Bit of sandpaper on some concrete and rub it back and forth till it's nice and flat, so it seals as best it possibly can. A little bit of damper fluid into the cup, don't fill it up, probably half. Now cycle the damper shaft, see a little bit of air came out then. Cycle it up and down. I do it again, different rates and different speeds. Don't push up too hard because it'll squirt up like a bit of a fountain, as you can see it's doing there. So go a bit easier on the upstroke. Okay, all the way to the bottom. No more air in that. That's what my hand is. And what I'll do here is I'll get an LED light, turn it on, and it'll shine through the fluid and you'll be able to see where the hole is, where the little screw goes back in, otherwise it'll be virtually impossible to see in the oil. A little bit of grease on it again so it holds it on the Allen key. Just carefully drop it down. Nick it up, don't go too tight on it, it's very small with a very fine thread. I'll just let the rest of the oil go, it's not much. I'll just double check to make sure that little bolt is tight. If it's not, it'll suck air in, but not silly tight. Okay, get a slightly dirty rag that's just going to get rid of the excess oil. Before I put the top back on, just get rid of the excess oil out of the top. Sure that's all still pretty clean inside your adjuster. When you do this a few times, if you put a bit of thin oil in it, everyone complains about not being able to feel the clicks and all this sort of stuff on the high speed. It's crap, you can feel it if you have them fairly clean. Because the low speed dampener is in the closed position, you must put the adjuster in the closed position. So when you move it again, it's going to be in the correct position when the numbers will line up, because you can have it so it misses the numbers. Okay, tighten the little screw back onto the top again. Make sure that you put it on the correct way by checking your clickers on your low speed. So fully open is 1, fully closed is 6, so that's all right, that's good. As you can see, I can adjust it by hand. They're not sharp clicks, but you can feel them. Once you've cleaned it and lubed it with a thin oil, you can feel them. Probably just don't do it with gloves on out on the trail. Alright, open it right up again. Put the forks back in the vise again, horizontally, with the back of the fork facing upwards. Grab your lowers. You've still got plenty of oil in around the seals and everything because I only did them a week ago. So the actual wiper seals and everything like that are all good. So I'm just going to put a little bit of slicko on the air spring side, just on the seal. Don't go overboard. As I found out the other week, that if you put too much in the air spring, it mixes with the fluid, makes a really thick, goopy, extremely slippery material, but it'll push you out of the left fork seal for a little bit if you put too much in. Lowers. I'll put a little bit more slicko in there. Can't have too much. Well, you can, but not too much. Alright, make sure it's going on correctly. So because of the back number on the back of the crown is facing up, the front guard will face back as well. Very carefully take it down. Line up your seals nice and carefully. Don't push it all the way home. So have a look in the ends, the bottoms, make sure you can see that the rod's are a little bit up. Get my measuring syringe and my oil mix of lowers, which is 1 part Fox 20, 2 parts 030 synthetic engine oil. Got a graduated syringe, so oh yeah, why'd that fall? That's get all the air out of it. So I'll take that to 25 mils. Chuck that in the air side. Don't kick that oil over. This one out to 35 mils. Bit too much. That goes in the damper side. Push your lowers on till the rod's insert into the correct place. Get your rebound adjuster, make sure it's in and make sure it's spinning freely back and forth before you tighten it up. Don't just shove it in and start tightening because you can jam up the rebound and you've got to send your forks back. OTT adjuster into the bottom. Start them by hand, make sure they feel like they're going in properly. Before I tighten any further, make sure my rebound is moving cleanly, which it is. Start the OTT by hand. reason I leave the air in the air spring is because the shaft will spin when you're trying to undo it and tighten it up otherwise. Check my rebound again, it's all good. Okay, grab my torque wrench. Torque it up. We're doing the 10 Newton meters. And that's it. Fork done. Easy, quick, few easy tools. There's no bloody excuses to not do it. So get in and do them. Alright, hope you enjoyed.